Today we're talking about Nike failing sustainability commitments, luxury fashion and how it's hijacking the Olympics, an update on the Shein situation, 2 or 3 new trends in fashion and how they relate to sustainability, and a lot of other news, including some good headlines, which is nice. So stay tuned and let's get into the video. Welcome back to my channel, or welcome if you're new here. If you are new here, hi, my name's Katie. I do videos around sustainable fashion. This is a headline video where I talk about all the latest and biggest news in fashion this month. And if that sounds interesting, then make sure to subscribe because it's a reoccurring feature on my channel. Let's just get into the first headline, shall we? Nike is currently struggling to remain profitable. And the first thing they've done to restructure the business is let their sustainability staff go. So industry leaders like Nike aren't the first brands to be struggling recently in today's fashion climate. There's a couple of influencing factors that means all brands haven't been seeing the profits they've been seeing in recent years. But you think with how big a name Nike is, they will be able to afford to keep their sustainability staff, who are doing arguably the most important work in the business right now. The company has made some pretty ambitious commitments to sustainability in recent years. And when we say ambitious, we mean ambitious. Like doubling their business while halving their carbon emissions. Ambitious. Since December, Nike has lost about 30% of the employees that worked primarily on sustainability initiatives in the company due to layoffs, voluntary departures, or transferation of duties to other parts of the business. One former Nike employee has called this a sustainability bloodbath. But even before December, when these layoffs started, the company had already started missing its targets for carbon emission reduction. In contrast, you have the sportswear company Puma in the news recently for its commitments to sustainability. They've started scaling up their textile recycling following the current football season, and it's just so insane that when you compare the profits of these two companies, one is doing really quite groundbreaking work to make textile recycling a thing, and the other is cutting employees whose sole goal is to reduce that company's emissions. Nike is clearly losing market share and trying to overcompensate for that financial loss by prioritizing short-term initiatives over sustainability's longer-term payouts. Now, Nike have responded to some of these allegations. Their chief sustainability officer said that the company's current strategy was embedding the sustainability work into the business, basically making it every employee's job to think about sustainability rather than having dedicated employees that have sustainability in their job title. This sounds like a cop-out to me. I mean, when you make everyone's job sustainability, then it's so easy to push it to the side when it comes to more pressing issues like short-term profits. This is why this news matters. How can we expect real, tangible sustainability progress from brands, and more specifically athleisure brands, if one of the industry's biggest giants clearly does not take it seriously enough? Why is it that sustainability was one of the first things to go when the company started struggling? How do they expect to keep the ambitious targets they made that consumers have bought into and believed if they're laying off the staff responsible for meeting it? Does this now place all of their sustainability commitments on the borderline of greenwashing if they're clearly not prioritizing it in their company? Let me know what you guys think in the comments below. On to the next headline, which is about LVMH, which is a luxury conglomerate brand headed by billionaire Bernard Arnault. They're sponsoring France's Olympic team and the games as a whole. Let's take a closer look into it. So like I said, LVMH is a massive conglomerate of brands. They're going to be everywhere for the games. They're designing the medals, they're providing France's uniforms, they're literally supplying the champagne for the event. The trouble is, LVMH is so far from being sustainable. One of their biggest brands, Dior, has recently been in headlines for links to forced labor. You have to ask, will those uniforms be created in similar circumstances, even if it's not Dior that's creating them, but another brand under LVMH's umbrella? Even if they're not created in that specific warehouse, if one brand within a company is doing unethical things, chances are the other brands are too. The company that's actually making France's uniforms is Byeee. You may not have heard of them since they are very quiet luxury, but they are rated not good enough on Good On You's directory of sustainable brands. They've also recently been discovered as having links to an unethical supply chain of kangaroo leather. Unethical in that there's no traceability there, so there's no way of ensuring fair labor practices or animal rights. And it's interesting because a lot of other high-profile brands like Prada and Gucci announced a few years ago that they would stop using kangaroo leather because of these ethical concerns, but Berluti has continued to bring them out. The reason why this whole story matters is that LVMH is sponsoring the games for one reason and one reason only: publicity, and by extension, to sell more. Luxury sales have slowed recently, and Bernard Arnault knows that this will provide them global awareness, even just down to ordinary people like you and me seeing Louis Vuitton's monogrammed box that the medals are presented in. That brand recognition is going to be insane, and Arnault is betting that down the line it will translate into more sales. Meanwhile, multiple brands under his business umbrella are shady as hell. Okay, let's move on to crochet because it's trending this summer and we need to do a little PSA. Summer 2024 is all about optimistic dressing, and crochet is a real embodiment of that. Clearly, fast fashion brands feel the same because I've seen so many of them bringing out new pieces with this crochet inspired trend. But the issue is crochet can't be made by machines. It's too intricate a process, so it needs to be hand done by skilled artisans. The price you're paying for this fast fashion is a direct reflection of the wages these artisans are paid by companies. And make no mistake, crochet is a time-consuming task. This is not to say you can't get in on the crochet trend. There's a couple of ways you can. One is making it yourself. Another way to shop it sustainably is to shop it secondhand. The third way is to literally Google ethically made crochet and do a little bit of research. I'll pop some brand recommendations on here, but one thing you should know is that higher prices don't necessarily equate to more ethical production. Let's do a little Shein update now, and if you didn't watch my video on the IPO drama, then I definitely recommend you go watch that. If you haven't, then you might not know this news. They've promised 200 million euros to a circular fund. Here's why that doesn't matter. Their estimated global revenue is 2 billion euros. The way they get that is from creating billions of throwaway items every year, knowing that they're destined to landfill within a matter of months. Exactly how many items is that? Well, new figures are suggesting it's up to 10k styles per day. That's not individual garments, that's new styles. So why have they bothered doing this? Clearly, it's not really to give back, considering 200 million is a tiny fraction of their global revenue. No, it's for publicity. Every major headline I know has covered this in some shape or form, especially since the whole industry has been consumed by the IPO drama, and anything Shein does right now is a hot topic. Whilst it's pretty clearly a marketing gimmick and a PR stunt to get them in the headlines for something favorable for once, it's also really smart and it may work. So in order for that not to happen, please sign this petition if you're in the UK, and even if you're not, send it to someone you know there or just share it online, because we need to stop this company listing in London. The next thing I kind of want to briefly talk about, because I might do a bigger video about it, is the underconsumption core trend that's on TikTok now. So no buying was trending a little while ago. I did a video on that, and this feels like a natural progression. Underconsumption core is basically the opposite to what we've been seeing on TikTok recently, of those bathrooms filled with thousands of products lining a shower, or those people showing off their perfume collections of like 100 bottles. It's like only having 1 or 2 items, or like a really minimal makeup routine, or it's about wearing your clothes religiously, or just owning less, really. The trend isn't really about spending less, it's about not buying more. At a time when even walking has become commercialized, and yes, I'm thinking of those Stanley Cup videos where you have like 30 different add-ons just to have a drink of water on your walk. This feels like a natural flip-flop of people who are tired of being sold to all the time. I'm very much here for it, but also it feels kind of like an online trend that isn't real in reality. It feels like this is for people who are almost chronically online and have normalized having so much stuff, when in reality, for a lot of people who aren't on TikTok, this is just their everyday life. Hopefully this is a trend that sticks around. I definitely want to do more of a deep dive, so let's move on. Last story before we get onto the good news is that fashion's links to cashmere is still a hot topic, and Burberry just got caught in the middle of it. Now, we all know Burberry. It's very very iconic for its checkered scarves, which are made of 100% cashmere, hence the price tag. A few days ago, protesters crashed a Burberry meeting and called out the brand for using cashmere in its supply chains. The protesters were from PETA and they were kicked out of the meeting by security, but someone stood up from the audience who was also with the group and asked the chairman about allegations of animal cruelty in their supply chains. The chairman denied the claims before noting that Burberry had already conducted an investigation and found no wrongdoing. On their website, the brand goes into detail about where their scarves are made in Scotland, but it doesn't mention the supply chain of that cashmere at all. In fact, digging into their impact report, I found that only 55% of their key raw materials were certified or responsibly sourced last year. I also found that they pledged to phase out raw cashmere in some of their products, but nowhere was there any mention of supply chain mapping for cashmere specifically. Despite the chairman denying allegations, PETA conducted their own investigation between 2022 and 2023, and they say they found concerning animal cruelty practices with suppliers in China and Mongolia, and that one supplier had links to Burberry. Okay, onto the good news section now. And both stories are about new generation materials and the interesting developments there. Firstly, Stella McCartney, which is a brand who is well known for their sustainability, has come out with a new collaboration with a next gen material, byeee, which is a plant-based feather-free insulation. It's actually made from bulrushes, which contributes to wetland regeneration. The material has a lot of good properties under its belt, like being water repellent and cruelty-free. The collaboration is expected to be used on Stella McCartney's iconic Falabella bag, and it will be coming out later in the year. Last story is a little bit interesting. It basically asks the question, would you wear human hair? A student has basically created some garments made from a combination of human hair and regular wool. Given that so much human hair currently goes to waste, the fiber has a much lower carbon footprint than a lot of other alternatives. But there are definitely some barriers to production. One of them is getting people to accept the idea of wearing human hair on their bodies, and that's not going to be an easy one to overcome. There's also the challenges of working with human hair. Not only is a lot of our hair bleached or chemically dyed, which can impact the quality of the fibers, you also have to deal with difference in thickness, pliability, and diameter. Because the process is so energy intensive, it may not be able to scale. And there's also potential problems of the ethicality of a future supply chain. For example, women being forced or coerced to cut their hair. But it's still a really interesting idea and something fashion will be keeping its eye on. Anyway, I think that's all my stories for today. I hope you guys enjoyed watching this video. Let me know any of your thoughts about the stories and let me know if you want me to expand on any of them. It's always good for video ideas to know what you guys want to see. But yeah, anyway, if you've watched this long, please like and subscribe to my channel and I will speak to you really soon. Have a lovely week. Bye.